Now, despite oil prices trading at over $100 per barrel, 60% higher than a year earlier, the latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, has exposed the fragile state of Nigeria's oil sector as the real growth of the country's oil GDP stood at minus 11.77% compared to 8.89% in 2022. While Nigeria's oil GDP struggles, other countries are reaping tens of billions of dollars due to a major surge in prices fueled by the conflict in Eastern Europe and a months-long Western sanctions on Russia, a major global exporter. However, at the just concluded 62nd conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, Dr. Emmanuel Ibe Kachiku, former Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, lamented Nigeria's unfavorable business environment for oil and gas companies and urged government to address the insufficient investment in the oil and gas sector.
Onshore production is going down. When I left in 2016, I think we were about 2.1 million barrels. Today, I think we're at about 1.3 million barrels. So it's almost a 50% to 100% decline. The costs, which ought to be going down, are massively going up. That's not good. And then you look at the volumes of revenues. Obviously, if your volumes are down and your costs are going up, it's obvious that your revenues should be down. So revenues are also going down.
Joining us on the state of Nigeria's oil and gas is Mahmud Tukur, an oil and gas expert downstream. Good morning, Mr. Tukur. Thank you for joining us.
How are you? Thank you very much.
Well, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
At that MBA conference, Dr. Kachiku identified some of the problems: high cost of production, unfavorable business environment, and a difficult investment, low investment in the oil and gas sector. Do you agree with him, or you think that there are other problems that we need to address to correct this terrible situation whereby oil is now contributing very low percentages to GDP?
Absolutely. I agree with him 100%. Clearly, he's talking from the upstream perspective. He's absolutely right. Part of the problem has stemmed from the fact that the PIA wasn't passed in time. The PIB wasn't passed in time. So that meant that upstream oil companies had reduced their investment in Nigeria. They were waiting for the law to be passed. That meant that underinvestment meant that the sector was basically crippled. It was declining. That's why oil has gone from 2 million production to less than 1 million barrels per day. Of course, now what that means for Nigeria is that as a nation, our number one export earnings, 80% export earnings, we're not getting it. We're getting 50% of that. And whatever is coming into the coffers, we're basically throwing away because we are now subsidizing the consumption of PMS.
Right, the dreaded subsidy,
Absolutely.
Which is projected to be at 6 trillion naira this year. But do you have any sort of silver lining? I'm always trying to look on the positive side, how we can ameliorate this situation.
Well, the passage of the PIA, if implemented, could help the sector. It will help the sector. The laws are there, but it's the will to implement it. So now, first of all, with the passage of the PIA, you have two regulatory bodies. That's very critical. So the Upstream Regulatory Commission and the Downstream Regulatory Authority. What that helps do is to focus government's action to ensure that the sector is properly regulated and the laws and the policies that will help investments are actually developed. So with the downstream sector, we're hoping that with the gas infrastructure fund in place, with the focus by the regulatory authority, they will help us. But the key is actually deregulation. Unless the sector is deregulated, we will not see that investment.
Well, Mr. Tukur, our apologies. It looks like we'll certainly have to reschedule this interview at a later date because I like the interesting points you are making. But we have to go back.